Okay, let's make a quick app in App Inventor 2. It's not going to have a lot of functionality, but it's basically going to show you the layout of the development environment and some of the tools that are available, some of the events that are available for use, and how we can change some of the settings for some of the objects in it. So, first thing we're going to do is on your computer there is a bookmark up here for App Inventor 2. I'm going to navigate just by typing in the address. I've used it so many times, it's in all of my frequent sites up there. When you first come up, you may need to sign in. Just use your @northernpolarbears.com email address to sign in. I, however, have authorized my computer for 30 days, so it just comes in automatically. So let's start a new project. Naming convention we're going to use is always last name, first initial, underscore, the activity number on which you're working, underscore, and then a descriptor. So this is just going to be a sample, call it, but it's for activity 111 where we start using App Inventor. Create me a new project. It's going to be a blank screen. There is nothing on the screen at this point. If I were to preview this on the tablet, all I would see is a white screen. Some of the ways to navigate through here, if you pull down projects, you can go back to my projects, you can start a new project. You can export your project so that you can share it with somebody else as an actual editable file so they can see all your blocks. Or we can also import projects. So if someone sent something to you as an AIA file, you can import it here and you can edit it with them. You can also delete your project, but I would recommend that you don't delete too many projects. Over here you can see some navigation buttons. The designer view is where you can see the user's perspective. So whenever we bring objects in here, let's drag a button over. Over here in the palette, user interface would be some things that the user can use to actually provide input. A button is one of those things. We could drag a button out. And now you can see here in the designer view that on the user's screen there would be a button, and it would actually display as text for button 1. In the block view, click on this tab, we can come over and these are all the blocks where all the areas we'll create scripts using blocks so we can affect what that button does, for example. So we're going to work in designer view just to get our layout going. Button in there, text for button 1 is what it says. Some of the things I can do for this button. This is going to be my start button. So over here in components, anytime you've dragged over an object or a component, it becomes available here. So instead of calling it button 1, we're going to rename it and we're going to call it start button. And you will see me generally use a lowercase to start my names. And every time there's a new word, I don't put any spaces in. I just capitalize the new word. This is called camel cases, and this is one of the conventions we'll use throughout the course. So I now have a start button. I also want to have a start label. So I'm going to drag a label out here. And we're going to call this start label. I'm going to do something very simple here. To start this, I'm going to change the text on my start button. So instead of saying text for button 1, I'm going to scroll down through all the properties for my start button. It's very obvious what you're working on because they tell you this and this match. So these are the properties for this. Very intuitive. I can enable it, meaning that it's clickable. If I take the check off, it's not clickable. I can make the font on it bold. I can make the font on it regular. I can make the font on it italic. So all over here are all of your properties. I am going to come down. I'm going to change this text to click to start. I want to keep the text centered on the button. We could make it left aligned or right aligned, but I'm going to keep it centered. And we'll keep it black because the black works well in the gray background. So now this button says click to start. Didn't change the name of the button, just changed the text available on it. Text for label 1, I'm going to change that. I'm also going to make it wider. I like this label to be centered. So I look down here in the properties, the text alignment is left. So the first thing I'll do is I will create a center alignment for the text, but it's still all squished up over on the left. I'm going to change the width. And one of the things you'll see for almost all of these objects or components is that if you pull down the width, there are several ways to do it. Automatic just says it's going to make it as wide as it needs to, basically to fit the text. I can also fill parent, and in this case, the parent where this label lives is screen 1. So if I click fill parent and OK, it now fills the entire width of screen 1. This is kind of the look I'm going to be looking for, so I might leave that there. But some other options are for width. I can make it a specific number of pixels. I can make it 70 pixels wide, for example. The problem with that is, well, it's not wide enough to fit all my text, so it does a little wraparound for me. Maybe I'll change the width to 100 pixels. And now it fits. One of the problems with pixels is that different screens have different widths. So a 70 pixel label is going to look silly if it's horizontally oriented and it has 1,000 pixels. So another way you can approach it is, instead of a pixel count, you can say, I want this to be exactly half of no matter what screen it lives on. So I'm going to change it to 50%, and now you'll see it extends out halfway across the screen. So those are 3 ways, or 4 ways, you can do automatic fill parent pixels or percent, that you can set heights and widths for your different components. So we're going to leave it as fill parent. I like it to be the full width, and it's nice and centered on the screen. I can also center the button. The way that I center the button, though, is a little different. I can't make the button be centered on its own without making the button the entire width of the screen, which I could do. It just looks a little silly. So I click on the start button. I can either choose it over here on the screen, or I can choose it here in the components. And if I go to width and make it fill parent, now I have a ridiculously large gray button. I think that's a little silly. So another way to approach this is I can create an arrangement. And down here in layout, we have several arrangements. And the one that I use most often is the horizontal arrangement. So if I drag a horizontal arrangement out, I'm going to put it above the button. And I make this arrangement's width fill parent. This is now across the screen. I can drag elements or objects or components up into this arrangement. And instead of making that button fill the entire width of the screen, my button is now going to be automatic. I just want it to be as big as it needs to be to fit the text. So the problem is now it's over on the left. I could drag another button in. I can put 2 buttons together, and this horizontal arrangement allows me to basically arrange things on the same horizontal line. Well, I don't want another button, so I'm going to get rid of that. But I guess I have to delete it over here. But I do want it centered. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick my horizontal arrangement. I'm going to rename it and call it my start button arrangement. And I'm going to set it so that now its vertical or horizontal alignment is not left but centered. And there you go. Now my button goes over to the center. I don't want any color in my arrangement. I just want the button to be colored so it sticks out with contrast. So I'm going to click on my horizontal start button arrangement again. And my background color, instead of saying default, I'm going to make it none. I'm going to make it transparent. And now it looks much better to me. I am going to make it so it's visible, because it's not about this box that's visible. It just means if I make it invisible, all the elements or objects that were in it also become invisible. So I'm going to make it visible. I can start the program with certain things being invisible and then making them visible later. But if I know I want them visible from the start, I'll usually leave them checked as visible over here. So far, so good. So our text for label 1 is the last thing I want to change. I'm going to make that "You haven't started yet." All right, that's my layout. I have a button and I've got a text label. I'm done. Super simple. Now I'm going to come over to the blocks. And a couple of things that we can do is we can immediately set this first block script to be something to happen as soon as the program starts. And the way we do that is screen 1 is always our starting point. And if I drag out this event handler called when screen 1.initialize, basically meaning when the event initialize screen 1 occurs, do all the stuff down here. Well, I like to put some stuff in this block all the time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my start button and I'm going to set its visibility. True means visible, false means invisible. This is a logical operator. A Boolean operator can either be true or false. We're going to bring out my label, and I'm also going to set its visibility. Now, if I don't want to scroll all the way down, I can drag out any set block. I can pull down, instead of background color, which isn't what I wanted to manipulate, I can pull down and find visibility as a choice on there too. Because I want it visible, I'm going to right click on duplicate, and that way I don't have to come over to my blocks. I'm just going to have this true block fit right in there. So now, when the screen's initialized, when this event occurs, do these things. Even though I have these visible over in the designer view, you can my button is visible here. I like to do this just to make sure that everything is as I want it to do. Don't have to do it, it's just one of those things I like to do. Plus that way, if I already have a screen initialize event handler, and there are some other things I want to decide to do as we initialize the screen or start the program later, I already have it available and I can just drop some new things in. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have the button become a control. I'm going to click on my button, and all of these event handlers here, whenever the start button has something happen to it, will allow us to place some blocks in here and actually have those blocks execute when the event occurs. So when start button is clicked, I want to change the text on my start label. So this is the event. This is the object that I want to change. So I'm going to drag out one of these set. Now, I don't care about the font size. I want to change the text. So again, I can bring out any set block and pull down and choose any of these properties to change. Well, I'm going to change set start label text to, and I'm going to fill something in here. So over here, I can come over and I can drag out text. I could type in here. I can say, you started. Finish, because this is the only functionality we have. I could also say, you know what? I want to have a couple of different lines of text, so I can bring out this join box, which allows me to join two pieces of text. They're still going to be in the same line, but it's nice because when we start working with variables, we could put a variable name in here and always have the variable's value displayed. But for now, I'm just going to right-click, duplicate, and I'm going to leave this blank for now. So I'll click in the text box and select everything and just leave it blank. It's not an error, it just interprets it as an empty script. I'm ready to check out my app. To connect, we can do a live preview. So if I click up on this Connect pull down and I choose AI Companion, which is App Inventor Companion, well, this App Inventor Companion program or app is located on your tablet. So I'm going to drag this out of the way. I'm going to go to my tablet view here. 1, 2, 3, 4 is my pin. And on the home screen on my tablet, I have this AI2 Companion. I'm going to open up that app, and I can use this QR code as a scannable item, or I can type in this text into my code up here. Well, I'm a lazy guy, and I like to connect with QR codes, so I'm going to click on Scan QR Code. It brings up my camera on my tablet. I put that QR code in the box, and sure enough, it will connect. And one of the ways you know you connect is that QR code pop-up goes away. So I'm going to click to start. Hey, it changed my text as predicted. Problem is, the event handler, when start button is clicked, always changes to this. So there's nothing else going on, but it shows you the functionality. There are some things we could certainly do to make this every other time it's clicked do something different. But for now, it was enough for us to do that. Can I do the refresh? No. So that's a rotate. I don't want it rotated. One of the ways you can change and go back to the beginning is just make a quick change over here. So what I usually do is I click an object, I change from default color to none, and then just go right back to whatever the color was, the one that I wanted. And you'll see now that my tablet has gone back to the beginning. So that's one way to restart without having to reconnect everything. So again, click start, and it changes the label to you started and finished. So there you go. That's your first app. Give it a try. I'd like you to do something similar, and I'll tell you in class what I'd like you to do. Good luck.